Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Painless Universal Conversation with myself and Welsh. Today we'll be talking about the psychology of fashion. What makes us buy what we buy? What makes us not go into the shop? And what makes us really decide this is something I really want? My guest today, Shakaila Forbes. In 2016, she became the first Black person in the world to earn a master's degree in the field of fashion psychology. Her research area focused on the underrepresentation of Black models in the fashion industry and its impact not only on consumer behavior, but on the self-concept of young Black women. After her paper was published in the International Journal of Market Research, she broadened her focus and created her own platform, Fashion is Psychology, which since became one of the leading destiny for insights, research, and writing center around the things fashion psychology. She's worked on the impactful products with brands such as Next, Sainsbury, and has been featured in countless global publications. Despite having a niche subject area which focuses on the development of a story and highly engaging audience made of mostly women based in the US, UK, and India. I can't wait to talk to her to understand this critical issue affecting our views of shopping and why, if you see a Black model, that might even entice you more to go to that shop, to try on that thing, to try on that outfit, to try on the makeup. Let's meet our guest, Shakaila, as she tells us her story and why she got there and how she believes she's making a difference to entice more Black women to shop. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Painless Universal Conversation with myself and Welsh. I have the amazing Shakaila here with me. I'm excited about it because she went into a very niche area. As I said in my introduction, this area is so niche that it's all about the way we shop. And she's also taken it a little bit further to go into the ethnic minorities to understand why do we Black women or certain women, what entices us to do certain things. Shakaila, thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. Thank you so much.
I'm super excited. And where are you joining me from?
I'm from London, so yeah, born and raised.
No, I'm super excited. You said yes when I asked the question because people always ask Painless Universal Conversation. It's for us is we talk about all things pain, and one of the pain I see is fashion. Fashion is also very painful because a lot of people, when they don't see representation of them, that gives them pain. That gives them, I want to wear that outfit, but I don't think if it will suit me well. I don't see my representation. How would that go with my complexion? How would that do, there's all that different question, and that causes people anxiety. That's how would that look on me? And that underrepresentation of that Black women, for example, gives people that pain because they're thinking, oh gosh, I bought this, but it looks good on my white friend, but it doesn't really look good on me. And you've taken this niche area. But before we get into this, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are, Shakaila?
Yeah, so I am a published fashion psychologist. So I have my master's degree in fashion psychology from London College of Fashion. And my main area of research, it primarily focused on multicultural marketing. So my paper, which is published in the Journal of Consumer Marketing, it's all about looking into kind of dispelling the myth that Black models don't sell. So that was something that was very kind of rife within the fashion industry when I was doing my degree. I think we had one of the editors of Vogue saying, if I have a Black model on the cover, she wouldn't sell. So of course, a lot of things have changed since then, but I think at the time it was like such a hurtful comment to hear, and a lot of models spoke out against this. So I wanted to prove that empirically that was incorrect. And, my paper proved that Black consumers, they really are invested more in brands and products when they are promoted by Black spokespersons. And it just shows it's not just about seeing yourself, it's actually feeling like a part of the community and seeing yourself hailed as a kind of symbol of beauty and how important that is. And there's a lot of research talking about how kind of that lack of representation in mainstream media, how that does impact the self-concept of young Black people, how they view themselves, how they feel like, you know, something isn't for them because they don't see themselves reflected in it. And yeah, I think we have come a long way with regards to that. I still think that there's a long way to go in terms of how much we're reflected in the media in proportion to our population and how big our communities are. But I'm really happy to see, you know, the increase of Black businesses, and, you know, Black businesses not feeling that they have to water down their images in order to be accepted by society at large. You know, the research also found that white consumers are also invested in products when they are represented by diverse models. So yeah, I really think there's a lot of work still to be done within that area, but I think that we're definitely on the right track.
I really think so. But what led you to go into the fashion psychology then? What, you know, it's such a niche area.
I know. I mean, I was always interested in psychology from a very young age. I think I was like always quite good at it, academically speaking. I think, remember one of my tests, I got like 98 out of 100 on it. And I thought, okay, my mom was like, you cannot not pursue this. Like, it's quite natural, but it's so weird. It was always a toss up between fashion design and psychology. Super weird. But I think because I was like super, like really nerdy and I was really into academia, I went into psychology. But in the university I went to, UCL, it was very clinical focused, like clinical psychology was what people were really interested in. And that just, I felt like that wasn't really me. So when we had the opportunity to do our own research, a lot of people was just jumping on pre-existing, like pre-created research pieces. I wanted to make my own. And it was happening during the Trayvon Martin murder and the first wave of the Black Lives Matter movement. And I just noticed a lot of people were talking about his hoodie. A lot of racial pundits were saying, oh, if he was dressed a certain way. And, you know, at the same time, the streetwear market is like really booming. And I was just thinking about how clothes, when they're on different bodies and they're in different cultures, they are kind of symbolized and they're interpreted in so many different ways. And I wanted to research that further. And it was so interesting. I was really passionate about it. And I got first in it. And I thought, you know, I want to take this further. So I did some research and I found a fashion psychologist that I begged her to shadow her and see, like, you know, how this research and this practice could be done, you know, in real life. Like, what do you make of it? And then luckily I came across the course at London College of Fashion, fashion for psychology for fashion professionals. And, you know, I thought this is the perfect fit for me. So I just continued my research and it's just really been evolving since then.
That is really, I mean, it's so nice when people go into things they're so passionate about. I think that you bring out a bit different light because it's something you're not doing just because someone asked you to do it, but you're actually doing it because you absolutely love it. When you look at the fashion world, how diverse is the fashion in the marketing, for example, when they talk about marketing, for example, how diverse would you think that is, the fashion world is?
For me, in any jobs I've had, that's kind of been more directly related to fashion. So in any brands I've been in, I've been one of the only, if not the only, Black person in the room. That's kind of been my experience with it, which is, I think, maybe one of the reasons as well why I've kind of focused a lot on my own kind of platform. And then I've looked at more the research aspect and the research and insights and the analytical aspect to it as well. I think a lot of people, when I speak to people who are Black people who are in the industry, they talk about, you know, the only one syndrome and how it can be quite challenging mentally to, you know, be in a space where you feel like you have to represent your entire community and not have that kind of cultural awareness where you can connect with someone on that level. Because although people think it shouldn't matter, it does matter. Feeling that you can be yourself and you have someone that identifies with your very personal lived experience. I think that's super important. And it's a shame that from my personal experience, I haven't been able to be in an environment with a lot of other Black people. And I guess it's something that I hope is changing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's, with time, with more communication, more people talking about it, I think we'll probably start seeing some change, but change will only happen when we, as Black individuals, start talking about it, start talking about the insecurity, the anxiety we get when we're around just only us in the room. And so, sometimes it's good that you need that, right? Yeah.
Definitely. Completely agree.
Yes. So because I started doing research, and I know I was talking to you, and I thought there's so much of psychology of fashion we don't know. We don't know the challenges. What exactly, we go into a shop, we buy things, but sometimes I've never really thought about it. I only think about my own self. For example, I'm a person who loves fashion, and I go to a place. The first thing I think about, would that suit me well? And sometimes when I see someone who represents me, I'm like, okay, so it works well on her body this way, so it should work on my body this way.
Yeah.
What are the biggest challenges for the psychology of fashion role today? What would you say some of the biggest challenges you're seeing?
For the psychology of fashion role, as in,
Yeah, so it's, because it's such a niche area. It's such a niche area to focus and specialize in. But there
yeah,
must be so much challenges to be in that area, to succeed,
yeah.
see yourself grow and succeed. What are some of the biggest challenges you must see going on?
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people about when I went to a job fair, and I was telling like a lot of these brands who I really wanted to work with, some very well-known brands, about my degree and what I was studying, and I was met with a lot of hesitation. It was like, what is that? We don't have time for you. Like, what can you do for us? And I think I still think there is a lot of hesitation into what fashion psychology is. I get the joke and, oh, are you like a therapist for clothes? Like something really ridiculous. But then when you explain to them that fashion psychology is the application of psychological theories and practice to every level of the fashion industry, then they kind of understand it a bit more. They understand, psychology explains the external and internal motivators behind why you buy what you buy. It explains why when you wear certain clothes, based on your like prior life experiences or the different associations you have with certain things, how those clothes can impact the way you act, the way you think, the way you speak, how when you interact with someone, you do interact with them differently depending on what they are wearing, why we keep certain clothes that maybe don't fit, things like retail therapy, how it is a legitimate, experience and how it does impact us. And, there's so much research and studies that show that people's moods are mitigated by what they choose to wear. So when you go in and explain all of that, they kind of a light bulb clicks for them and they say, oh, okay, I get it. And then when you talk about it from a business aspect, how, an understanding of psychology can get people to understand their consumers and connect with them on a deeper level, understand their motivations and how they might shop, how their lived experiences, how their culture might indicate when and how they might want to buy something. Things like brand loyalty, and why you might want to buy into a brand and connect with it. And there's so much psychology that goes into fashion. And I think what I've had to learn is to really get that point across clearly, because when people hear something that's so foreign, they kind of they might have their guard up and think, oh, it's nothing. But when you explain it, they really do resonate with it. And I'm thankful that that's been of my experience as of late.
That's really good. In wake of Black Lives Matter, I think that took, especially last year, so many people came out to protest about it. I mean, people, a lot of Black people are saying enough is enough, right? Have your views of the marketing changed in wake of Black Lives Matter? Since, have you done more research to see what impact has this had
Yeah.
on the way psychology and fashion would change?
Yeah, I think I've done a bit of surface level research into it, and I think that brands are now realizing the impact of community on their marketing. I think now we're seeing brands really realize that they need to have a voice when it comes to social issues. It's not simply about the clothes. Consumers really want to know what a brand stands for, and that is something that they consider at point of purchase. And I think a lot of brands have been quite reactionary when it comes to that. Some of them, you can spot instances of, tokenism, when
Yes.
the square appears one day and then in the next couple of weeks it's kind of disappeared. But then you can see the brands who are being quite genuine with it. I think a lot of consumers as well have started to really embraced the idea of, you know, supporting Black-owned businesses a lot more and keeping kind of connecting more with brands that are reflective and supportive of their own community. And I think a lot of brands have done well in, you know, talking more about their roots and their history when it comes to their marketing. And I think that that's something that consumers have really resonated with. I think especially because of the pandemic, people have the time now to be more mindful when it comes to their purchases. And I definitely think that that aspect, that social, political, that aspect has really come into the forefront of their minds when they're choosing what to buy into.
Speaking of the pandemic, that is actually very interesting because with the pandemic, we've seen a lot of people dress very differently. So the same thing, even those who would normally get all dressed up to go to the office, we've not seen that anymore. People now dress very laid back. So how has the COVID-19 affected people's lifestyle in the way they buy and, you know, use clothes now?
Yeah, I think it's impacted it in a lot of ways. I definitely think that people have placed comfort front of mind when they are purchasing clothing, whereas before they might be very heavily based on the aesthetics. But now I think people, when they are not kind of bound to like the shackles of workwear uniforms, they're now realizing that, you know, when you are comfortable, it does have a positive impact on your cognition. You're able to process things a lot better, you're able to work a lot better. And I think people are realizing that they need to kind of inject comfort into every layer of their outfits and how that can, you know, positively impact them. I think people are also looking at their wardrobe and seeing how a lot of it is currently being unworn, and I think that's given them pause for thought to think about how their wardrobe is actually reflective and supportive of their actual day-to-day lives, not the lives that they kind of are hoping to live. And again, like I mentioned before, I think people are being more mindful of their consumption. I think, again, they're thinking more about, do they really need this, and how opportunities they're going to have to wear it. Is this a brand that I support? Is this something that's truly reflective of me? I think people now have the time to make those cognitive like decisions before they buy into something. But then again, on the flip side as well, if you look at different pandemics, like for example, SARS, like after that, I think people saw like a huge increase in revenge spending. So, you know, people are limited in what they wanted to buy, and now they all of a sudden they really want to go out for it. I mean, you've seen a lot of brands like have sections of their website called June 21st, you know, looks that we're going to just wear when we're finally allowed back out. So I think we might see that at the very beginning of when things start opening up. And then I think people might switch back to being a bit more mindful about the things that they're buying and wearing.
I love that. I didn't really think about that, but I think it is true because there's that urge. I haven't done this in a long time, and I've been doing it online, but it's still not the same because I think it's always nice having that opportunity to go into stores to try on clothes and say, oh, this doesn't fit that well, so I give it back, rather than having the online return policy, which is such a difficult process to get through. The US inauguration that happened in January, when you look at the outfit, that was very, very colorful, very bold statement. Everyone was very colorful. In your fashion and psychologist, how would you describe that inauguration colorful mode?
Yeah, I think as well, it was a very like obviously historic and moment. And I think for a lot of people, it was a moment of celebration. Obviously the past 4 years, to many people were truly traumatic. So I think coming out with these bold colors was truly to mark like the kind of joyfulness of the day. I think the colors chosen, especially the kind of purple hues worn by the new Vice President, Kamala Harris, I think they have a lot of ties with like the feminist movement. And I think that was very significant, her being the first, not only the first female vice president, but the first Black female vice president. I think she was really trying to be symbolic with her choice of colors. And, you know, just like kind of cementing this moment in history going forward. And also people do associate the colors like purple with kind of royalty. So again, just kind of cementing her position as being hailed as, you know, a future leader and someone that a lot of young Black women, Black and brown women can look up to.
Yeah, I just love this because, you know, we sometimes, when you're not in that side of things, you just look at it and you just say, wow, beautiful colors, but not knowing that colors actually represent a lot of things, especially now we're in spring, summer. going into summer, and there's a whole shift in the dynamics of what we wear and how we, well, you know, colors we wear. How can you say the colors we wear affects our mood?
I think, yeah, a lot of the times colors can affect our mood, but I think people think it's like a very homogenous like experience. Like if you wear yellow, that means you're happy, but it's really down to your very specific relationship with the color. For example, different colors mean different things in different cultures and communities. Like red in a Western country, I mean, a completely different thing in a different culture. I think it also it comes down to your personal association with that color. Of course, there are like generalized research which we can point to. So, for example, the color red, that has been linked to arousal, it's been linked to attraction in a lot of research. So you can make that a suggestion, but you can have your own personal experience with red. You know, it can remind you of a loved one, it can remind you of a fun time, it can be a very lucky color for you. So I think it's really down to the personal experience. And there's a lot of research into theories like enclosed cognition, which talks about, you know, the associations that you attach to certain garments. When you wear that, you embody those associations. So if you have a red top that you associate with strength, with power, with prestige, when you wear that, you're going to embody those characteristics. So again, it's really about your personal associations that you have with colors and with clothing.
The major brands, you know, you look at brands such as, you know, H&M, Zara, all of these big brands. When they use models, they use a lot of black models to, you know, to showcase their outfits. In your opinion, how does it, when you see a black model on the thing, how does it help with the buying power for the black women or other people? Does that help improve buying power, or does that just, it's just a model that you're just seeing? Does
Yeah.
that do anything?
Well, I think it definitely does impact the amount of money that black people are willing to spend. So that is what my research proved. It proved that when a black consumer sees an image of a black model promoting a brand or a product, they're more likely to buy into that product and they're more likely to spend more money. So it definitely does impact the buying decisions of that community. And I think what people should learn from that is that yes, of course, being representative is not only good from like a psychological standpoint. It doesn't only, you know, positively impact how these communities view themselves. It's also like a sound business decision, and I think a lot of black owned brands should really resonate with that and realize, you know, you don't have to exclude members of your community. Like we've seen a lot of brands before think that they need to like be cater to different communities or showcase more white models in order to be seen as legitimized, and I think that's super archaic way of seeing it. You know, we have the spending power in black and brown communities. It's getting stronger every year, research has shown. So I think, yeah, being inclusive, yeah, it's not only responsible, it's also sound business wise.
Yeah. And what's your hope for fashion psychology? What's your, in the future? You know, we've gone through the pandemic, people are coming out very soon and we'll be all shopping again. What's your hope for the fact? What do you want to see more of when you, with what you're doing?
I think I want people to understand the value of fashion psychology, understand the value of having this deeper layer of understanding, how it can help them make more sound decisions. I think I want people to practice mindfulness a lot more and, you know, think about the connections that they have with the clothes that they're buying. I think sustainability is such a big thing that we're hearing now in fashion. And I think a lot of the time people are chastised for buying into fast fashion, or they're just told like, you know, don't do this, don't do that. But people are not really talking about, you know, if you have a stronger relationship with your clothing, if you think before you shop into something, if you think about the reasons why you're buying something, how something can make you feel, then you're going to be less likely to throw it away, or maybe less likely to buy into it if it's not a purchase that's completely right for you. And I think that that's an important step in the whole sustainability kind of journey and practice. And I think that it does take a psychological element to understand that avenue, and that can really help push sustainable practices into the wider community.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I think it's something that we've seen so many fast clothes, especially when the world was opened and people, especially young girls, going out clubbing and everyone wanted to change outfit every day. But one of the things we don't think is the damages that cause to the environment and how if we keep with this lifestyle, and who knows how long this earth could contain such a lifestyle. And it's very true. The fashion and psychology, if you start teaching that to young girls at a very young age, they'll probably understand how better to use their clothes. What kind of
Yeah.
message would you have for,
I think as well, like I always talk, when I talk about fast fashion, sometimes that is one of the only options for a lot of people due to their like economic situation. So I never like to chastise people for buying into fast fashion. I think there was a point in time where for me as well, like I couldn't afford the more sustainable brands. And that's a lot of the case for a lot of ethnic minorities, I think as well, where they find that there's a lot of barriers to buying into more sustainable brands. I think for me, I tell people to, think more about why you're buying something and is it right for you. Like, don't buy a ton of clothes just because you can and just because they're cheap. Think about, is this something that's going to last me a long time? How does it fit in with the other clothes in my wardrobe? Is it something that's going to make me feel special and important? Is it for an occasion? Am I going to be able to customize this in the way that suits me? Am I going to take care of this? Like, telling people about learning about tailoring or about like a simple stitch, or thinking about like, caring and how you wash and like, take care of your garments and how best you can get the most wear out of it. Because sometimes, even though something is a fast fashion item, if you take care of it in the right way and it holds a special place in your heart, it can last you a long time and you might keep it longer than something that's maybe slightly more expensive and is not really right for you. So that is a sustainable practice in itself.
That is something you need to teach out there because I think it's true. It's not about the clothes being too expensive. It's also how you look after your clothes. I've had clothes that are actually quite cheap, and I mean very cheap, and I've had them for many years. And people always ask me, "How come you've had this? How come you still have this in your wardrobe?" I'm like, I take care of my clothes. I look after them well. I just don't dump it in a washing machine or, I take care of it and I just don't do the tumble dry. And if things are done, in certain things, you just have to hand wash it because you can't do that. And it's not because it's cheap, means you don't look after it. Yeah. And I think that's something your message should really stand, that with the psychology of fashion. It's not about being cheap. It's true because a lot of the people who buy these cheap clothes are still the young Black girls because they can't afford that. They're not in that price bracket to afford the very expensive one. But even if you're going to do this, you don't need to buy a lot. You can still maintain your clothes and you can still mix, match, and they can still look beautiful.
Precisely.
Thank you so much for your conversation. I really appreciate you joining me today because if anything that anyone could take away from this is that, fashion is there for all of us, but it's also changing. And the more we change it, the more people are able to embrace it and, make it more sustainable as well. I really appreciate talking to you. Thank you.
You're welcome. And of course, if there's anybody that wants to know more, like, feel free to check out fashionistpsychology.com. We have so much research on there, amazing writers contributing more to this industry. So yeah, definitely check it out if you want to know more.
Thank you so much.